Chapter 71. Martial Arts Lesson. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 71. Martial Arts Lesson Translator. Chuchatrain Editor. After dispelling the frustrating thoughts with difficulty, Ling Tian looked at the group, and asked them another question: when does the recruitment of troops for our country start? The crowd was stunned for a moment, before Feng Mo replied, recruitment. What recruitment? It was now Ling Tian's turn to stare in shock. There's no recruitment for new soldiers. Everyone shook their heads as Feng Mo replied again, the world is so peaceful at the moment, what use have we to recruit soldiers? Wah! Ling Tian was stunned speechless. Just because it is peaceful, there's no need for recruitment. The group replied as though it was only natural. The usual recruitment takes place once every 5 years, and there was a recruitment held just last year. Since we are not warring currently and the military is not facing a shortage of manpower, there is no need for recruitment. Unless we are in an imminent state of war, or there are too many old and sick soldiers, will the recruitment begin once again to replenish the old with new. Feng Mo also added, in my 10-odd years in the army, I've only seen recruitment being held twice. No war means no recruitment. Recruiting soldiers once every 5 years. Ling Tian face-palmed at this and had totally no words to describe it. No wonder the dynasties changed so frequently, and no wonder why this continent had 7 empires living on it. The reason was because of this. Managing their military as such, if the empire did not die, then that would be weird. There is no misfortune in being readily prepared. What are those kings and officials doing every day? Did they think they could live happily ever after once they had set up a kingdom? Having no worries at all. Not a single awareness of hardship. Ling Tian felt as though his thoughts were unable to keep up with the times. Ling Tian's original thought was to borrow the country's recruitment, keeping a few batches of new recruits secretly with their family's influence. Then, he would give them his own training, turn them into his private army. However, this plan had now completely fallen through. 5 years per recruitment. How could Ling Tian afford to wait? It went without saying that his plans had to be changed. Looking at Feng Mo and company, he said, the Ling family courtyard will be done in about 3 months. Based on my own plans and estimates, we can at least have 10,000 men inside practicing at the same time. Since the empire does not recruit soldiers, I'll leave this part for you guys to perform. My requirements are those who are above 15 years of age but below 25, take as many as you can. This will be your first mission. Feng Mo, you're in charge of handling this. Whatever methods you would like to use, I'll leave it up to you. However, when you have gotten those people, you need to bring them inside the Ling family courtyard without any news spreading out. Ling Tian thought a while longer before he continued, one recruitment might be too large and attract too much attention, so you can break it into a few batches. As for how many batches to split them up to, that's for you to decide to. Feng Mo stood upright and cupped his fists, saying, yes. I will comply with young noble's order. Ling Tian considered the scenario once again before letting out a sigh. Feng Mo, I'll need you to pick another couple of guys to take over the Violent Wind gang. In 3 years, I want all the underground powers in the capital to be under our control. The rest of the brothers, you may assist at any time. Any matters can be decided at your own volition, there's no need to go through me. Oh, by the way, do not touch the Blood Rose Hall, it's reserved for Ling Jian. Ling Jian shot up in gratitude, many thanks, young noble. Nodding his head, Ling Tian stood up before saying, I've been staying too long in the house, let's go out for some exercise. Everyone's faces lit up in delight, knowing that Ling Tian was about to start lecturing on martial arts. All of them rushed out like a swarm of bees. The piled-up snow was a pure white, with the moonlight resembling water flowing. Ling Tian stood leisurely in the courtyard, holding on to a blade, saying, all of your so-called martial arts actually has no style to speak of. It was only created after countless processes of grinding on the battlefield. However, it will never be enough for all of you to roam unhindered, and to protect your lives if you rely merely on it. Watch and learn. Drawing out the blade, Ling Tian stood with it slanted towards the sky. His very person seemed to exude a fearsome aura, making it such that it was difficult to even breathe for those people surrounding him. Slowly tilting the blade down, he immediately followed up with the entire set of blade works. In that instant, the snow unrestrainedly blew up, and blade energy flew up into the sky. Although they were only facing a single person with a single blade, in the hearts of the 36 blood iron warriors, they seemed to have been teleported back to the battlefield, witnessing the momentum and killing intent of 1,000 cavalry and 10,000 foot soldiers as they fought for supremacy. One blade moved, and the souls of all present were reaped. Very quickly, Ling Tian finished and kept the blade while straightening himself. Staring at the enraptured expressions of all present, he laughed. This set of blade works is named, Slaughter of 1,000 Soldiers. Other than using it for close quarters combat, it is most suitable for a confrontation between two camps, where one is surrounded by a multitude of enemies. In time to come, I'll impart to all of you here this set of blade works, for its complementary internal arts, I'll also pass them down to you. The faces of those present simultaneously emerged expressions of ecstasy. All of them hurriedly bowed in gratitude. For such a ferocious and powerful blade work, if successfully passed down to them, the overall strength of everyone here would definitely be greatly improved. Furthermore, from what their young noble had said, there was also a set of internal arts which could complement it. Everyone present knew that any form of internal arts was a secret among secrets. To think that they had a chance to learn it and become one of those supremely strong individuals in the fables. All of their hearts could not help but race as their bloods boiled in excitement. After dismissing the crowd, Ling Tian looked at both Ling Jian and Ling Chen, who were staring with wide eyes at him, and burst into laughter. "Why are you looking at me like that? No need to worry, I definitely have something good for the both of you. Follow me." After Ling Tian had finished passing the mnemonics of the Divine Shocking Dragon formula and Divine Ice formula to Ling Jian and Ling Chen respectively, he then used his internal strength to guide them both on how to cycle the energy within their bodies. By the time he was done, it was already bright outside. Looking at each other, the three of them could not help but laugh. Even though they did not sleep for one night, the trio was unexpectedly brimming with energy, without the least bit of fatigue. Leisurely stretching his waist, Ling Tian slowly walked out of his door and squinted his eyes, staring at the rising sun in the far east. His face loosened into a carefree smile. The rising sun seemed to be accommodating Ling Tian's tiny body, bathing him in the countless rays of golden sunlight. Behind him, both Ling Jian and Ling Chen looked at Ling Tian as he immersed himself in the sunlight, with admiration and worship in their eyes. Chapter 72. Grave Situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 72. Grave Situation. Translator. Chuchutrain Editor. Cell in a flash, 10 years had passed. In this 10 years, each of the empires within the continent repeatedly engaged in warfare. Though most of them were small skirmishes, those who were smart could tell that the monarchs of each country were beginning to be a little unwelcoming of each other. After this round of probing each other's defenses, the confusion of war would likely descend upon the entire continent. At this point, self-preservation was not enough of an excuse for a country to use in order to keep the peace. A man does not have the intention to harm a tiger, but the tiger has the intention to kill the man. Even it is for self-preservation, everyone had to enter into this war for hegemony. The sky-bearing empire was involved in various wars unceasingly for the past few years. Since it was located in the middle of several countries, the country became an ideal target for the opposing countries to set troops to probe them. Furthermore, they were definitely considered a fat piece of meat. Luckily, the sky-bearing empire had an unbeatable commander, General Ling Shao. Moreover, the other countries were reluctant to engage in an all-out war to prevent the case where the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Were they to be invaded when they were off invading someone, then it was as good as handing all their hard work over to the others. As such, though the sky-bearing empire faced much shocks, it did not leave any irreparable damage. The citizens believed that so long General Ling was alive, there was no worry about any invasions. Thus, even though the country's situation was a little tense, the people still put on a show of happiness and prosperity. Western Line Military Camp. The General's Tent. Ling Xiao furrowed his brows, looking at the deployment map, his eyes betraying his worries. Behind him stood a neat row of officers, gazing steadily at their general, awaiting Ling Xiao's next battle plan. Ling Xiao let out a sigh internally as he pointed to the topographic map. Look at this place. The two mountains are pressed close together like horns, leaving a narrow gorge in the middle close to 5 or 6 miles in length. The narrowest part here isn't even 100 feet. However, this is a place we must pass if we want to advance or retreat. If the Western Han's army were to lay down an ambush here, they can hide alongside the two walls of the valley to wait for our army to pass. When we appear they can use rocks or fire to attack us and our losses will definitely be disastrous. Even if we manage to pull through, we would definitely not have the military power to clash head-on with the enemy forces. However, this narrow gorge is a path which we do not have a choice but to take if we want to advance our troops. All the officers stood behind Ling Xiao, staring closely at the map. Most of them already knew about this trap. The reason as to why the Western Han and Sky Bearing did not engage in wars for the past 10-odd years was the fact that this gorge existed between them. From past to present, an uncountable number of troops lay within this gorge. Soldiers had termed this place as the Valley of Sobbing Spirits and the two flanking mountains as the Morning Soul Mountain. It was to the extent where the Sky-Bearing Empire retreated the moment they approached this place, with no intentions of conquering any further ground. One of the deputy general raised his head to look at Ling Xiao, and hesitatingly spoke, "General, in the past, we have always stopped our wars at this point. So why must we take over this Valley of Sobbing Spirits this time? We can also rely on the natural barriers, and will not likely to suffer any losses." The rest in the tent echoed his sentiments. "Yeah, that's right." However, Ling Xiao instead hollered out angrily, "Imbeciles! Times are not different and the continent is about to break out into chaos. If our Sky-Bearing Empire can conquer this Valley of Sobbing Spirits in one go, this would guarantee our safety towards the west. If war and strife were to ensue, the initiative to attack or defend would lie with us with this gorge in our hands. How would this be the same as the past?" Pausing for a while, he continued, "Any news from the scouts?" A young officer stepped out and saluted, before saying, "Reporting, there has been no news so far." As he spoke, worry clouded his face. Ever since the war started, they had employed over 10 rounds of scouts to scout this place out, but not a single one returned. From this, they could tell how tightly the enemy was guarding their secrets. The worry on Ling Xiao's face grew more obvious. The Western Han's commander-in-chief, Han Shizhe, is extremely proficient in the military arts. Having defended the Valley of Sobbing Spirits for a few years, he should have long ago turned the place into an impregnable fort with all of his experience. How hateful! However, our army must take down the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, else when chaos strikes, we will be besieged on both sides and most likely annihilated. Furrowing his brows again, he asked, "How long has the latest batch of scouts been gone for?" That young officer replied, "Roughly 5 days or so." Heaving another long sigh, Ling Xiao spoke, "They're most likely not around anymore." After a short pause, "Send another batch." The other officers remained silent. They all knew that their general had the ambition to take down the valley by all means possible. Otherwise, their empathetic general would have long given the order to retreat from the valley. From the importance that their general stressed towards the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, the crowd began to sense something amiss. Could it be that chaos was going to strike the continent soon? Seeing the looks on all of his officers' faces, Ling Xiao knew that all of them were not aware of the scenario. Thus, he commanded for some people to bring down the current topographic map, replacing it with another. When all of them took a look, it was actually a map depicting the area of governance for every country in general. Ling Xiao gestured with a finger. The latest intelligence report shows that Northern Wei has amassed a troop strength of around 150,000. They will soon be deployed towards the north of our sky-bearing empire. In at most 3 months, they will reach their objective. Adding on to the garrison troops of 80,000, they would have a military strength of 230,000. Without speaking, I believe all of you can tell what their motives are. Everyone present took in a breath of cold air at this news. Ling Xiao's finger now shifted towards the east, where he continued, to our east, the Moon Deity Empire is still at war with the Great Zhao Empire and both are at a stalemate. However, whichever side claims the final victory, our sky-bearing empire would have to bear the brunt. To our south, though both Wu Empire and South Jing seem to be biding their time, they're all amassing soldiers on the sly, making them future threats. Being in the central region of this continent, sky-bearing empire will be besieged on all sides once it gets messy, however stable we might seem now. Ling Xiao spun around, facing the crowd, before saying in a steely voice, therefore, no matter the price, we have to take down the Valley of Sobbing Spirits in the shortest possible time, stabilizing the West. When the time comes, we would have 100,000 men defending the West, sparing 60,000 men to tackle the other 3 fronts of war to prevent any loss of territory. The audience stared agape. Even in their dreams they did not expect that the situation had already deteriorated to such an extent. A 40-odd-year-old officer spoke up with a mask of confusion. In the recent years, our sky-bearing empire had maintained harmonious relations with our neighboring countries. With Wu, Southern Jing and Northern Wei, they even have political marriages with us. So why would they? Ling Xiao threw him a look, but remained silent. Innately, he was cursing, you senile fool. Old bastard. No wonder you're still an officer even after 30 years in the army. Just a simple political marriage, how could it compare to the allure of global domination? At this time, which monarch would be so stupid as to bother about such things? Currently, all sights were fixed on the battle between the sky-bearing empire and Western Han on the possession of Valley of Sobbing Spirits. If the sky-bearing were to triumph, the continent would see another few years of peace. If the sky-bearing empire were to lose this war, the fires of war would immediately blaze to the point of no return. No sovereign country would allow the Western Han to break the balance of power and monopolize the sky-bearing empire. Thus, everyone would send in their troops to get their share of profits. This war, while only a confrontation of less than 200,000 people between 2 countries, was the linchpin. Ever since they came to the Western line for the past half a year, both armies had received their fair share of victories and losses. However, the Western Han general, Han Shizhe, was also a veteran and could see through Ling Xiao's intentions. Thus, he only focused on guarding the Valley of Sobbing Spirits, not advancing prematurely. This left Ling Xiao without any alternatives. If the battle were to continue dragging on, it would spell disaster for the sky-bearing empire. Chapter 73. Strange Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 73. Strange Battle. Translator David T. Editor. Cell Report. A loud voice, filled with shock, sounded from afar. General, the scouts are back. An division commander took a look before saying. Ling Xiao turned around quickly as he said with gleaming eyes, summon him quickly. The 6 scouts entered, with dust all over their bodies, and took a knee, reporting to General, it's good news. Ling Xiao replied calmly, what's the good news? One of the scouts replied, when the 6 of us went out this time, we did not meet with any enemies until we reached the peak of the Morning Soul Mountain. The 2,000 enemy troops on the north of the Morning Soul Mountain died a mysterious death. The mountain was also burnt, not leaving anything behind. Another scout then said excitedly, the same thing also happened on the southern side of the Morning Soul Mountain. Not a single enemy troop was left of the mountain. There was also traces of the mountain being burnt. Ling Xiao's eyes widened in shock as he asked, "Is this real?" The 6 scouts knelt down together. "Your subordinate is willing to make a military pledge." A scout then shouted, when this subordinate arrived at the peak of the mountain, "The military camp is in a mess for some reason." Ling Xiao then stood up and ordered, "Command the 3 armies, we are setting off." Wang Fangji. Here. You will command an army of 10,000 men to attack the Western Han to delay the Western Han army. You will set off immediately. Your subordinate receives his order. Li Mingyang. Zhang Mengqi. The both of you will lead 5,000 men each to occupy the northern and southern faces of the Morning Soul Mountain. Your subordinate receives his order. As for the rest of you, you will follow this general to do battle with Han Shirzai. Roger. Ling Xiao led the troops in the front as he was puzzled by this strange incident. The troops on the 2 faces of the mountain had already sent out their signal to indicate that their forces had already occupied the mountain peak. Ling Xiao had purposefully slowed down the speed of their main troops in order to guard against a possible scheme by the enemy. However, he never expected that both his vanguard forces did not face any resistance at all and easily occupied the mountain peak. The moment their forces occupy the mountain peak, any form of schemes would be rendered useless. Don't tell me there are other troops helping us in secret. Why don't I know about this matter then? All the generals knew that Ling Xiao had a godlike mastery of his troops and thought that he had secretly sent forces to take care of the Soul Morning Mountain. Thus, they all came forward to give their congratulations to Ling Xiao. Being unable to reject them, he could only humbly respond to them. The army then sped up and went through the gorge in a short while. As their objective was nearing them, they were all extremely surprised. There was only Wang Fangji with his 10,000 troops stationed there. There wasn't even a single trace of the Western Han troops. The only thing they saw was the Western Han's tents and flags all over the floor and the occasional glimmer of something shiny on the floor, obviously the weapons which were left behind. It was obvious that the Western Han troops had retreated a long time ago, and in a hurry as well. There were still 2 tents with green smoke rising from them, filled with the enemy rations. Ling Xiao began to frown. He could obviously tell that there was definitely someone helping him in secret. But, he was puzzled about just where this person who helped him was. Why would he not reveal himself after giving him such a huge assistance? Wang Fangji then came over the Ling Xiao and said with bewilderment, "General, when our forces arrived, the Western Han's army had already retreated tens of miles away. Not a single one of them could be seen. This is strange." As he said that, he rubbed his head in frustration. He originally wanted to accomplish a feat here so that he will be able to return to the capital with his head held up high. However, he never expected the enemy to escape before he even drew his sword. Ling Tian thought through the matter carefully but was totally clueless. Then, he thought back to the battles he had fought in the last few years. Almost all of the time, he would achieve an inexplicable victory at the most crucial moment. There were even a few times when the enemy's general died an unknown death when they were locked in stalemate. As he linked all of these factors together, Ling Xiao could be sure that there was definitely a mysterious force helping him in secret. After receiving such a great favor from the other party, he could not even see who the other party was. Ling Xiao took a long sigh. But, this mysterious man does not seem to have any enmity with me. It seems like he is here to help me. But why do I know nothing about him at all? This matter is just too strange. Ever since the ancient times, there had never been such a situation such as this. In these past few years, Ling Xiao would definitely win every battle he fought, becoming a character that every army would fear. No matter what, this Soul Morning Mountain and Valley of Sobbing Spirits is finally in the hands of the Sky-Bearing Army. From now on, this place will definitely become a place where for the souls of the Western Han Army to mourn. Ling Xiao then waved his hands depressingly and said, "Transit into defense and occupy the Soul Morning Mountain." We must definitely make the Soul Morning Mountain be a barrier that no one can pass. We will return to the capital half a month later. As he said that, he did not wait for a reply and returned on his horse. As the other generals looked at Ling Zhao's back view with bewilderment, why is it such that the general looks so depressed? Didn't we just win a great battle? Capital, Ling Mansion. Ling Tian was half lying down on a bamboo chair with his eyes closed. Behind him, a beautiful lady in a white dress stretched out her jade-like hands and gently massaged Ling Tian's shoulders. Her expression was extremely sweet with a sense of satisfaction in her beautiful eyes. It was as though the happiest thing on earth would be for her to stay by Ling Tian's side and massage him. With a barely inaudible swish, a black-dressed man entered by flipping over the walls. Ling Tian's eyes were still closed and his expression did not change. However, the white-dressed lady behind him turned cold as the smile on her face disappeared. Replacing it was a chilly glare as her sharp gaze swept past the black-dressed figure. The black-dressed man then shuddered for a moment and took a few steps forward. When he was in front of Ling Tian, he took a knee and said, "This subordinate pays his respect to young noble." Ling Tian then replied with a soft "oh" to acknowledge the greeting. The black-dressed man then stood up and cupped his fists politely towards the white-dressed female. "How do you do, Miss Chen?" The chill on her face was not reduced a single bit and did not even look up. She only continued to massage Ling Tian's shoulder as her chilly gaze unknowingly vanished. The black-dressed man, Ling Jiu, felt his body relax as though he was being spared. Then, he quickly took out a letter from his bosom and handed it over with both his hands. The white-dressed lady then waved her hands gently as the letter unknowingly fell into her hands. As though he was used to it, the black-dressed man was not startled as he said, "Feng Mo and Sun Tai led 1,000 men to the Soul Morning Mountain. Ling Qi had successfully assassinated Han Shizhe and retreated safely. Now, General Ling had already taken full control of the Soul Morning Mountain." Ling Tian then replied with a soft "oh," as though it was all within his expectations. Then, he asked calmly, "Oh, it was Ling Qi who went. What is the casualty count of the brothers like?" Ling Jiu said solemnly, 53 deaths, 41 serious injuries and 130 light injuries. Brother Sun Tai's right shoulder was also injured. Ling Tian's body shook, "The losses are so big. Even Sun Tai was injured. Who were the troops taken from?" Ling Jiu trembled as he said, "From the 3,000 men Yu Chao had, we took out 500 to attack the southern mountain. We also took 500 men from Li Han to attack the northern mountain." He had been silently praying that the young noble would not ask about this matter. Now that the young noble asked about it, he knew that the two of them would be in trouble. Ling Tian then sat up straight and glared at Ling Jiu, "Tell me everything at once, what is there to hide? You still need me to ask you bit by bit." Ling Jiu's pale face began to break out in sweat but did not dare to wipe it. He stood up even straighter as he reported, "Of the 500 troops from Yu Chao, there were 43 deaths, 10 heavy injuries and 90 light injuries. Of the 500 troops from Li Han, there were 10 deaths, 31 heavy injuries and 40 light injuries." Ling Tian frowned and said with frustration, "What is Yu Chao doing? So many more deaths than heavy injuries. Tell Feng Mo that the training for Yu Chao troops must be increased. Yu Chao will receive 20 military rods. All of the captains under him will also receive 20 military rods. As for Li Han, let Feng Mo reward him accordingly." Ling Jiu finally had the chance to wipe his sweat as he thought to himself, exterminating 2,000 soldiers with 500 troops with only 30+ deaths. If this were to be placed anywhere, it would be a glorious record for sure. Only when it is in front of the young noble will they have to accept punishment instead. But that Li Han is really quite perverse. If the both of them are being compared, it is no surprise for the young noble to be angry. Ling Tian then lay back down and shut his eyes. Then, Ling Chen waved her hands to Ling Jiu and said, "You may leave. Report if there are any changes." As though he was spared from torture, Ling Jiao took a bow and drifted over the wall as though he was a leaf in the wind, disappearing in a blink of an eye. As he came and went, no one in the Ling family managed to discover his presence. Chapter 74. Power Expanding. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 74. Power Expanding. Translator. Chuchitrain Editor. Cell. Seeing how Ling Jiao ran out of the room anxiously, Ling Chen, who was standing behind Ling Tian, immediately dropped her icy demeanor. Bursting out in laughter, she said, "Young noble, it seems like the scare you gave this monkey today wasn't light at all." Ling Tian chuckled, and suddenly sat upright. Stretching out his hand, he pulled Ling Chen's dainty little figure into his embrace, as he said, "I didn't scare him, what I saw was my Chinner's icy demeanor freezing the poor guy up." Ling Chen's face reddened, but continued sitting obediently in Ling Tian's embrace, her body wriggling as she pouted, "Young noble is teasing me again." Ling Tian burst into laughter at her words, before moving close to her ear and whispering, "Does Chinner still remember the time I felt your bones for you? You caused me to get severely beaten up by my dad on my buttocks, to the point that I couldn't get out bed for a few days, how torturous that was." Hearing him mention that awkward incident during that time, Ling Chen could not help but let out a laugh. She began struggling inside his embrace as she stomped her foot in annoyance. "Young noble only knows how to exaggerate, you had only been bedridden for 2 days. Furthermore, it was all faked." Ling Tian sniggered as he continued, "Seems like you still remember this, lass. You caused this young noble to get beaten to such a sorry state, shouldn't you give some compensation to this young noble?" Ling Chen did not know whether to laugh or cry. "Young noble, think about it, how many times have you used this incident over the past few years to get compensation? How come Ling Chen seemed to be unable to repay this debt?" "Oh." Ling Tian could not help but sluggishly acknowledge, before changing his stance quickly, "How about, I'll feel your bones again to see if there are any other sort of cultivation methods for you." Ling Chen paled at this, and successfully struggled out of Ling Tian's grasp this time, running as far as she could before replying half in anger and embarrassment, "If young noble continues to only think about such things, then Chinner will not visit any more." Ling Tian rubbed his hands in glee, salivating as he spoke, "Good Chinner, just once, just one more time, is that okay?" Ling Chen lovably stamped her foot, her delicate nose wrinkling as she sniffed, "Young noble, I've heard this sentence more than 20 times already." Ling Tian could only laugh in response. Standing up, he asked, "Chinner, which stage have you practiced your divine ice formula to?" Hearing his tone shift as he changed the topic, Ling Chen slowly returned to his side and sat down, saying, "I've just stepped into the 5th stage. Chinner is really stupid, only reaching this stage after practicing for so long." Ling Tian smiled at this, "You're still unsatisfied. Some people practice their entire lives and cannot even break through to the 5th stage, how old are you only?" Ling Chen smiled at the compliment, however complained again in the blink of an eye, "But last time when Ling Jian that jerk was here, I was only his equal. This is infuriating." Ling Tian cracked a smile as he explained, "Ling Jian was giving way to you. If it was a life and death battle, you're definitely not his match. However, those under Ling Jian currently, even including Ling Qi, are no longer qualified to be your opponents." Ling Chen however replied in dissatisfaction, "I know that Ling Jian wasn't putting in his all, however I too did not use the 5th stage of my divine ice formula. So how can you say that I'm not his match?" Ling Tian pondered for a while before replying, "What Ling Jian practices is not meant for a head-on collision, and neither can he use that to compare notes with others. What Ling Jian practices is a martial art to kill. Be it reaction nor internal strength control, you are still on par with him, but in a life or death battle, even if your martial arts is higher than Ling Jian, you will still perish under his sword." Ling Chen puckered up her mouth and huffed, "I don't believe." Looking at her, Ling Tian's voice grew grave, "Chinner, I know that you have never recognized Ling Jian. However, do you know this? More than 1,000 people have fallen under Ling Jian's sword, but you have never killed. In a life and death battle, just Ling Jian's killing intent would already suffocate you. Hearing Ling Tian's harsh tone, Ling Chen could not help but lower her head, letting out a soft "N" in reply. Seeing her downcast look, Ling Tian could not help but take her into his embrace, lightly saying, "By the way, Chener, I found out that you have changed quite a bit after stepping into the 5th stage of the divine ice formula." Ling Chen's face started to burn, and she rebutted, "What changed? I'm still the same." Ling Tian merely remained silent, smirking at her. Ling Chen was leered at to the point she could not take the embarrassment, and buried that charming face of hers deep into his bosom, afraid to lift it up. With a tiny voice much like the whine of a mosquito, she whispered, "I'm not sure why, but after practicing this arduous divine ice formula, I started to loathe every single guy from the depths of my heart. Even Ling Qi and Ling Jian are not spared, only. Speaking to this point, her neck also started burning, and her voice grew even more imperceptible, even Ling Tian could not grasp it with his hearing. However, Ling Tian could guess the contents. He laughed, saying, "Is it that you only do not loathe this young noble, Ling Chen's little head buried even deeper into his chest, writhing as she spoke, "Young noble is teasing me again." Her tone was coquettish, yet sounded as though she had said it in a huff. Ling Tian could not help but explode into laughter. In these 10 years, Ling Tian's influence experienced rapid growth. The Ling family courtyard had already contained 20,000 men. Furthermore, the only reason it was not more was because Ling Tian had passed down the order not to take in more than that amount. These 20,000 men had already driven the 36 blood iron warriors nuts. It was only after 10 odd times of recruitment, with Ling Tian personally overseeing the acceptance, that these elite troops among elites of 20,000 men was formed. As for the violent wind gang that Ling Tian was in control of in secret, it naturally turned into the #1 gang in Sky-bearing Empire. Every single event in the capital would be immediately sent to the Ling family courtyard at first notice, thus keeping Ling Tian fully in check of the happenings in the capital. 3 years ago, a secretive organization named the First Pavilion suddenly appeared in Heavenly Star Continent. As for their name, it was naturally because they prided themselves as the best assassins in the continent. Any target placed on their bounty list would lose their lives within half a month, be it a pugilistic hero or a city official, there were no exceptions. The entire world was searching for the actual hideout of the First Pavilion, yet no one could even find a tiny lead. The First Pavilion had thus turned into the most frightening existence within the entire Heavenly Star Continent. Of course, the fee for assassinations would also be greatly inflated. The highest price being a sum that could actually reach the heavens. Whatever the task, the First Pavilion never knew of failure. In the past, the Fei family in southern Zheng tried to set a trap. They engaged over 100 martial experts at where the missions were delivered, hoping to catch a staff to force out the location of their hideout so as to eradicate them. However, the result was that the Fei aristocratic family, who had dominated for over 100 years, was cleanly wiped off the face of the world in that one night, a population of over 2,000 silenced without a single one escaping. Once this matter spread, the world was stunned speechless. Anyone who had malicious intentions against the First Pavilion all immediately retreated, without a thought of going against them anymore. In contrast, the name of young noble Ling Tian was also on the rise. Not just in the Sky-bearing Empire, but even the other 7 countries had heard of the great name of young noble Ling Tian. Of the Sky-bearing Empire's 3 great silk pants, Ling Tian was ranked first, and no one was able to shake his title as the #1 silk pants. The present great scholar, Kong Ji-shu, upon seeing Ling Tian for the first time, said emotionally, "This Kong has seen many silk pants young masters, yet for someone like young Master Ling, this is my first time laying eyes on such a character. One could say that he has no predecessors, and will never have any successors either." This criticism was severely penetrating. Once this sentence got out, it immediately spread like wildfire, and young noble Ling Tian's name also spread far and wide, his reputation beyond compare. Even Mr. Kong Jishu's phrase of, "one could say that he has no predecessors, and will never have any successors," also became a phrase passed down through the ages. Chapter 75. Opportunity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 75. Opportunity. Translator David T. Editor. Sell the accomplishment at the Seoul Morning Mountain. This news spreaded across the whole sky-bearing empire as though it had wings. The whole empire was also filled with celebration. The Seoul Morning Mountain and Valley of Sobbing Spirits had always been a great barrier against the sky-bearing empire. But now, this barrier is in the hands of the sky-bearing empire. From now on, the sky-bearing empire will have no more worries from the west. They can both attack and defend, having a large advantage. At the same time, they also avoid the misfortune of being attacked from all sides and would have a strong buffer against the empires surrounding their territory. After the news which the sky-bearing empire won over the Seoul Morning Mountain of the Western Han Empire spread out, the troops which were stationed at the borders and eyeing covetously had diminished greatly overnight. The sky-bearing empire can heave a sigh of relief. The greatest contributor to this feat would naturally be the unbeatable General Ling Xiao. The results from this battle had pushed his fame in the sky-bearing empire to an unprecedented height. In fact, there were many people who had erected a longevity tablet for Ling Xiao. There were many people who sighed in their hearts, "General Ling is a hero of this generation with his stunning battle feats. Everything about him is good except for his good-for-nothing son. A tiger father with a dog son. It is really such a pity. No matter how good something is, there will always be flaws." For the occasional few who would say that, they would be lashed out at by everyone else, General Ling has completed such amazing feats and risked his life for the empire and people. After doing so many good deeds, he would naturally not have the time to discipline his son well. Furthermore, with Ling Xiao's reputation, so what is his son was a little bit of a playboy. As long as they were careful enough to hide their own daughters, then all would be fine. After all, he can't possibly go into their houses to snatch them openly, right? As such, Ling Tian also basked in the spotlight together with his father. As his father's reputation spread, the name of young noble Ling Tian also became widely known. However, in all of these battle contributions of General Ling, who would know just how much of these were contributed by this super silk pants in their eyes? Who would know that if General Ling did not have this unfilial son, much of his contributions would likely be discounted with his life possibly being lost? No one would know about all of these. Even General Ling himself would never believe that he had actually raised such a wonderful son. With regards to all of these, Ling Tian would naturally not be bothered with it. At this moment, this super silk pants was comfortably lying down under the rack of grapes, enjoying the grapes being fed to him by a beautiful lady. If anyone were to see this scene, they would definitely lament, "What a beautiful lady. It is just such a pity that she was ruined in the mouth of a tiger." A soft sound then sounded from outside the courtyard, reporting to young noble Wang is here to visit. Ling Tian responded with a "oh" and said, "Invite him in." "Wahaha, brother Ling Tian, this brother missed you to death." Following a duck-like laughter, a shabbily dressed guy, with his ribs revealed and hat crooked, walked in. As he smiled, his row of yellow teeth missing 2 front teeth could be seen. The way he looked, he didn't seem like he even had 2 tails of meat on him. As the laughter sounded, Ling Chen had already hid in the room like a gust of wind. As she saw this young master from the Wang family, who was ranked together with Ling Tian as the 3 silk pants in the capital, Ling Chen felt uncomfortable all over and had the urge to spit on him. While the Wang family was not like the Ling family or Yang family, they were definitely ranked within the top 5 in the capital with their decades of foundation. Ling Tian then laughed and stood up unsteadily, "Brother Wang, your presence bring light to my humble dwelling." Young noble Wang was called Wang Bo, which means that he is extremely knowledgeable. While Wang Bo was not knowledgeable, he still has many talents. Especially with regards to drinking and playing, he was a natural prodigy who did not need to be taught. He would also frequent the red dot light district to display his many talents. As he touched a hair growing on his mole, Wang Bo laughed, "Young noble Ling, if your place is considered a humble dwelling, then my house must be considered ruins." Ling Tian responded with a laugh and sat back down. "Brother Wang, I wonder what you are here for today." Wang Bo then responded casually, "Look at what you're saying. So I can't come and visit if I have nothing." Ling Tian laughed and replied, "But it seems that Brother Wang always has something when you visit." Wang Bo then shrunk his neck back and gave off a lecherous laugh for a while. Then, he crept forward mysteriously and approached Ling Tian. Right before he was about to speak, his nose twitched as he asked with doubt, "What a fragrant smell of a lady. Young noble Ling, was your little lover with you just now? Did this uninvited visit of mine spoil something good for you?" Ling Tian was first stunned for a moment. This fellow can't do anything else. But his ability to smell beauties is really amazing. Then, he laughed it off and said, "She is just a maid in the family." Seeing that Ling Tian was not willing to continue along this topic, Wang Bo also tactfully laughed it off and continued mysteriously, "This brother is here as a bearer of good news. Our opportunity is here." Looking at his scruffy looks, Ling Tian suppressed the urge to kick him out and replied with a feigned excitement, "What sort of opportunity?" Wang Bo then laughed, "Does Brother Ling knows that your father, General Ling, is going to return back to the capital?" Ling Tian's face turned bitter immediately. "What kind of a chance is that? Chance to get beaten up?" No, Wang Bo feigned elegance, "Your father made a great accomplishment this time and my father said that the emperor could not sleep because of the excitement. He ordered that when your father returns to the capital, the whole empire will have 3 days of celebration. The emperor will personally host a banquet in the martial virtue hall where even the princes and princesses will take part. The emperor may be afraid that it may not be a good sight if there were only a few princesses. Thus, there will be another banquet at the Eternal Music Palace. On that day, all the beautiful ladies from the different aristocratic families will be present. I heard that the different princesses will be going there to make friends with poetry, essays, and paintings. Brother Ling Tian, the moment I heard about this, I rushed over here to tell you about it. I know that you would definitely be interested in it for sure. How about it, isn't this a great opportunity?" As he said that, Wang Bo slapped Ling Tian's shoulders as though he meant, "You are my close friend and we are both lecherous perverts." Ling Tian face palmed on the spot as he became depressed in his heart, "You are a lecherous bastard but I am not. While this is an opportunity for you, this is only a torture to me." Seeing that Ling Tian did not say anything for such a long time, Wang Bo began to encourage him, "At that time, your father will be in the martial virtue hall. Brother Ling does not need to worry that you'll see your father." Ha. Ling Tian took a long sigh and said in exhaustion, "Their beauty is all a result of make-up and I'm really not very interested." Wang Bo's eyes narrowed as he became agitated. Where did that come from? Not to mention the fact that all the princesses are great beauties, even the young miss of the Li family, Dong family and Yu family are all famous and talented beauties in the capital. Ling Tian instantly choked on the grape he was eating as he began to cough incessantly. Apart from the young miss from the Li family and Yu family, he had seen the rest of them. Apart from the fact that they were a little above average, their characters were extremely bossy and not much different from how Ling Tian was currently acting. Talented. Probably as talented as the guy right in front of him. Brother Ling, don't need to get agitated. At that time, I will come and find you and we can go together. Maybe your future wife may be there. I am really looking forward to it. Wang Bo slapped Ling Tian's shoulders as he said in fantasy with longing in his tone. Chapter 76. Dare not be rash. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 76. Dare not be rash. Translator. Chuchutrain editor. Ling Tian rolled his eyes, saying, "Not interested. I'm definitely not interested." "Oh. Wang Bo's eyes flashed as he said, I heard that young noble Yang as well as the crown prince would be there, isn't brother Ling interested in joining them for some fun and games? Ling Tian's eyes brightened at this as he thought, turns out that these few playthings will be present too. This is getting more interesting. Since I have nothing on my hands right now, might as well look for them to seek for pleasure. Maybe I would be able to find something of value from this few idiots. Having affirmed his decision, Ling Tian let out a hearty laughter. Since there are so many ladies from all those prestigious families waiting for this little brother here, it would be rude of me not to pay them a visit. How about this, little brother here will be there at the agreed time, but brother Wang, you must not snatch any beauties with me. Wang Bo could not help but roll his eyes, innately scolding himself for being a busybody. Based on the attitude of this little guy, how would he fail to turn up at a place full of beauties? Thinking about it, he still decided to warn Ling Tian, young noble Ling, don't forget to come with guards. All those people there are of high positions, if a fight happens to break out, being alone and defenseless would make you an easy target. Ling Tian rolled his eyes, saying, don't tell me I'm that easy a target. Wang Bo was first stunned. Then, he remembered the fact that sitting in front of him was actually the person who was given the title of top silk pants under the heavens. For such a matter, there was of course no need for him to worry. Wang Bo then coughed dryly a few times. Seeing as there was nothing more to do, he decided to take his leave. Ling Tian could not muster up the enthusiasm to ask the person to stay for a meal, and so followed the flow to send him out politely. Only when he had walked far did Ling Tian finally heave a sigh of relief. Rushing back to his little courtyard, he realized that Ling Chen had long ago came out of the room, smiling mischievously at him. Ling Tian stared at her, saying, what's so funny? Is there a meaning in watching me play sham gestures of politeness with those silk pants? Ling Chen let out a peal of laughter at that. It seems like young noble is the limelight of all the silk pants in the capital. How did he end up hating the silk pants? Ling Tian only glared viciously at her, before letting out a long sigh and collapsing on a rattan chair, putting his legs up and crossing them. Ling Chen could see that his mood was not good, and did not dare to poke fun with him any longer. Instead, she walked slowly towards him, furrowing her brows as she spoke, young noble, in actuality, you need not continue pretending any longer with our current strength. Young noble is being too unjust with yourself, Chenner does not understand, why does young noble not carry out the operation right now? Ling Tian let out another sigh before opening his mouth, the reasons are many, but the primary one is that I do not dare, not that I can't. Furthermore, this is not the best timing. Ling Chen stared with wide-opened eyes. You don't dare. In this world, whom or what can make my young noble so apprehensive? Ling Tian sat up straight, before solemnly saying, Chenner, your young noble is not infallible. In this wide world, all sorts of talent and marvels can appear, all beyond our own imaginations. Firstly, all the countries are recruiting but not moving out, waiting for a catalyst to break the balance. The first to mobilize, would definitely end up as the target for the others. Thus, nobody wants to be the scapegoat and go first. Secondly, while the radius of our intelligence report might be growing more and more robust, but have you noticed? There is consistently one part which has not seen improvement, and it is a crucial and serious point. Baffled, Ling Chen questioned, which part is that exactly? Ling Tian snorted, that is the matters on the 6 great families. The information which we have been able to gather on the 6 great families have all been surface reports. As for their internal affairs, they probably still have hidden cards which we have no idea about. Humph, if they had leaked a bit of news now and then, I might have still believed it. However, even with all our intelligence sources, we actually cannot even obtain a scrap of news from any of them. Are the 6 great families made up of iron sheets? How is that possible? Don't you feel that something is weird about it? Ling Chen began to frown at this, lightly voicing her acknowledgement, that's right, now that young noble has mentioned it, your servant also feels that something is wrong. Ling Tian continued with a heavy face, this is especially so for the Northern Weizu family, they seem to have watertight defenses. This leads me to suspect that this Yu family is definitely the most complicated family we have to deal with. Just the fact that this family has been able to survive for over a millennium goes to show that there's something fishy. What kind of household is able to stand strong for so long without suffering from destruction? It is 1,000 years of hardships. If there are no special reasons involved, even if you beat me to death, I would not think that they only lived up to this point because they had immense luck. The other point is something which has puzzled me for over 10 years. In this world, the presence of martial arts definitely exists, however the people who are in contact with it are abnormally low. Why is this so? We've already scouted out for over 10 years with minimal rewards, why is this so? Studying and practicing martial arts, the purpose is to become famous to all under the heavens, to root out the strong and support the weak. However, we hardly even see this sort of people, why is this so? Why are this bunch of people keeping their secrecy for? Ling Tian bombarded multiple questions in a sitting, making Ling Chen's head a little dizzy from the amount of information, leaving her at a loss for words for a moment. Ling Tian drew his brows tightly, continuing, I suspect that this whole matter has been controlled behind the scenes, be it by a single person or by a group. If that's the case, then the end result would be disastrous. Disastrous to the point of no return. Thus, if all these matters do not reveal themselves naturally, or I cannot reveal the truth behind it all, I will not make a move so easily. Once I move in haste, then what we may attract is a tribulation of lightning and thunder, one which may completely eradicate us. Ever since Ling Jian and Ling Qi duo went over to the Northern Weizu family 2 years ago to scout them out, but almost got captured, I had started to feel suspicious in my heart. When both of them act together, even I cannot say that I can beat them, let alone capture. What does this say? Ling Chen opened her mouth in shock, this can't be true, right? If this whole thing is really being controlled by someone or an organization, then wouldn't the strength of this organization be frighteningly immense? Even wanting to conquer the continent would be a piece of cake for them, so why are they biding their time for? Ling Tian paced around in frustration, saying, that's what makes me puzzled. The more I think, the more I feel that my deduction shouldn't be wrong, but for the same reason, I feel that I'm being led more and more off track. This is something which is inconceivable for me. Maybe, there are still other variables at play here, but whatever the case, this group of people are destined to become our opponents in the future. Once we emerge as a new force, there will be no reason for them to stay their hand. This is the reason I want all of you to keep on promoting and cultivating hard. What we will be facing in the future may be something greater than all of our imaginations. Furthermore, it is highly likely that all of these are related to the Northern Weizu family. This is my gut instinct. Ling Chen rested gently in his bosom, saying, no matter how powerful and great they are, Chen'er believes that young noble will still come out victorious. This is also my gut instinct. Being teased by her, Ling Tian also finally started smiling and his worries thrown out of his mind. He could not help but pinch her tiny nose, saying, my Chen'er sure knows how to sweet talk me till I can't tell north from south, making me into such a happy man. Ling Chen swatted his offending hand, and began struggling in his embrace, displeasedly saying, bad young noble, you only know how to pinch people's noses. Ling Tian pretended to have finally seen the light, saying, seems like my Chen'er doesn't like people to pinch her nose. Then let me think, how about I find another place that she might like people pinching? Rubbing his fingers together, a wicked smile hanging on the corners of his mouth, Ling Tian dragged his eyes up and down Ling Chen's body, as though finding a suitable place to strike, finally landing his eyes on the lofty towering peaks that was her chest. Ling Chen paled in shock and covered her chest with both hands, running as she let out a scream. Ling Tian laughed out loud and stalked behind her, neither slow nor fast. Chapter 77. So that's the case. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 77. So that's the case. Translator David T. Editor. Cell. With regards to Ling Chen, Ling Tian also did not know how he felt. Ever since he brought her back 10 years ago, Ling Tian's life had been completely taken care of by her. While Ling Chen was a year older than Ling Tian, she had always felt like a child that would never grow up whenever she was by Ling Tian's side. At every moment, she would want to lean on Ling Tian and enjoy the sense of security from deep within her heart. As such a scenario occurred. While Ling Chen was older than Ling Tian, she would rely on him for everything. At the same time, she would take care of this man who she admired with all of her heart. While Ling Tian was enjoying the care and concern from Ling Chen, he would also protect this lady who was a year older than him. After 10 years of living together, the relationship between the both of them had already surpassed that of a maid and master. Their relationship was one where both parties would feel warmth and dependence. After a round of laughter, Ling Chen curled up in Ling Tian's embrace, her hair messy, eyes blurred and face red. She then used a finger to draw circles on Ling Tian's chest as she requested, "Young noble, can I go with you on that day?" Ling Tian laughed before replying, "I would be going there with the motive of picking up girls. How would it be appropriate for you to come?" Ling Chen then whined, "But I want to go and see if there is any beauty who can match up to young noble." Ling Tian then lowered his head and kissed her cheek before teasing, "Even if there is one or two, how can they be compared to my beautiful Chen'er?" In embarrassment, Chen'er said, "Chen's is just a maid for young noble to order around. Young noble will have to find a wife in the future still." As she said that, while she did not mind, she could not help but feel a sense of regret and sadness in her heart. Ling Tian was stunned for a moment, as he understood what she meant. He then turned serious and sat up straight, supporting Ling Chen up as well. "Chen'er, look at me." Chen'er sat opposite him obediently, with doubt in her eyes. As she looked at her suave young noble, she could not help but be smitten with him. Ling Tian then stared at Ling Chen in the eyes, as though he wanted to pierce deep into her soul, as his stern voice sounded, "Chen'er, I hope that you will remember this phrase of mine." As Ling Chen felt his seriousness, her heart shook for a moment before replying gently, "Young noble, please speak." At the same time, she could not help but feel a sense of hopelessness and despair in her heart. She thought that Ling Tian wanted to warn her to not cross the line, not letting her imagination run wild. As she thought about that, tears began to fill her eyes. Ling Tian then said calmly but resolutely, "Chen'er, I know that I will let you down in this lifetime. I will not be able to give you a proper status. But, I hope that you will remember this, no matter how many wives or concubine I have in the future, you will always be a lady in the deepest part of my heart. You are genuinely my women." Ling Chen whimpered in joy as she dived into Ling Tian's embrace. With tears streaming down her face, she said, "Young noble, oh young noble. Chen'er is willing to serve you for all my life. Chen'er has never thought about having any status. Chen'er only wishes to stay by young noble's side for all my life. I do not have any other requests." Ling Tian wiped away her tears gently and said, "You just have to remember this, no matter when and where, you will always be mine. Do you understand?" Ling Chen nodded her head in joy as her tears flew all over. "Chen'er understands. Chen'er is young noble's women in life and death." A full 10 years, Ling Chen had been following Ling Tian for a full 10 years, and she finally heard an affirmation from Ling Tian. As this long-awaited moment finally arrived, Ling Chen felt that she was overwhelmed with happiness in that moment. Even if we're to die right now, she can do so without regrets. Ling Tian then let out a sigh with guilt in his heart. This generation was just like this. If he were to mention such a thought in his previous life in front of his girlfriend, he would definitely be given 2 tight slaps. However, Ling Chen was now filled with joy and happiness, as though she had received great grace from Ling Tian. Feeling the depressing atmosphere, Ling Tian could not help but joke, I heard that already. Chen'er said that she wanted to be my women. Should I let her fulfill her promise now? Ling Chen was startled as she became both embarrassed and angry at the same time. But, she was also at a loss as she ran away saying, "Humph, in your dreams, young noble." She then rolled her eyes and stuck out her tongue at Ling Tian adorably. As Ling Tian saw that, his heart began to itch. He then could not help but jump up and chase after her. Ling Chen then giggled as she avoided his hands, escaping out of the room. Ling Tian then pretended that he was angry, running again. "I will definitely catch you today." Then he began to chase after her. Outside the door, Ling Tian's mother, Chu Tinger, walked over with joy on her face. As she saw the both of them fooling around, she could not help but smile. No matter how lousy her son is, he would still be the apple of her eyes. Ever since Ling Tian's infamous name of being a silk pant spread throughout the capital, Chu Tinger's hair almost turned white from worry. When the children of other government officials are as old as Ling Tian, the number of marriage proposals had flooded the household. But, Ling Tian was already 15 and there was still no one who showed any interest. Every official who has a daughter would avoid Ling Xiao whenever they saw him in the royal court. For no other reason but Ling Tian's infamous name. Which parent would be willing to send their daughter into a fireplace? As Ling Tian and Ling Chen saw that Chu Tinger had arrived, they restrained themselves. Ling Tian then walked forward and paid his respects. "Why did mother come here personally?" "You just need to send a maid to inform me and this child will visit you." Chu Tinger then smiled warmly. "Tianer, mother is here to discuss something good with you." "Something good?" Ling Tian felt depressed. "Please speak, mother. This child will definitely obey you." Chu Tinger laughed and continued, "A few days later, your father will be back from the borders. At that time, the emperor will be hosting a large banquet to celebrate for 3 days. I heard that the princesses will be hosting a banquet in the Eternal Music Palace and all the famous young ladies will be present. Since you have nothing to do at home, you should go and take a look. If you see any lady you like, come back and let mother know. Mother will request the emperor to give a decree to appoint your marriage." Agre. Ling Tian was dumbfounded. Looking at the scheming smile on his mother's face, he could not help but ask bitterly, "Mother, for the princesses to hold a banquet in the Eternal Music Palace for 3 days to mingle with the different young nobles, that can't be your idea, right?" Chu Tinger then nodded her head as though it was only to be expected. "Of course it is my idea. If not, they would all hide their daughters at home. How is it possible for you to meet them? You disappointing thing, not finding a wife even though you're so old. If I am not going to worry for you, just when would I have to wait until before having a grandchild to hug?" Ling Tian almost fainted on the spot. He wanted to cry but no tears flowed out. When Wang Bo came over previously, Ling Tian found it strange. These ladies usually do not leave the house, why would they suddenly have a banquet? The victorious battle does not seem to have anything got to do with those little girls anyway. So it was the scheme of his mother. She really put in a lot of effort with this move of hers. Chu Tinger also had no choice. She was helpless. All of her good friends in the past who had a daughter in their family would avoid her completely. Even if they were to meet, they would find an excuse to escape the moment the topic changed to their children. Even though Ling Tian had already grown up, there still wasn't a single marriage proposal. Chapter 78. Marriage Crisis. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 78. Marriage Crisis. Translator. Chuchatrain Editor. Cell. Having no other alternative, Chu Tinger began to plot in secret. The moment the emperor gave the celebratory decree, she cajoled him to send out another decree. When the time comes, she would bring her son to have a look, and whomever took his fancy, she would request from the emperor to bestow upon them a marriage. Riding on the influence that Ling Xiao had continuously accumulated merits for the country, she would definitely make her son bring home a daughter. In law for her that day. To not have anyone coming up to propose marriage was no big deal, but to even be rejected even after knocking on their doors repeatedly was too offensive. What kind of nonsense was this? The Ling family could be considered an outstanding family clan, why would marrying their daughters into the family be anything shameful? Chu Ting'er was utterly infuriated. Thus she hatched this ghastly plan, thinking, the whole lot of you don't agree, right? Good, then I'll get the emperor himself to send out a decree. Let's see who still can make any noise by then. Ling Chen, who was standing at the side, spontaneously burst into peals of laughter, trembling like a blossom in the wind. Seeing the depressed look on Ling Tian's face, she found it harder and harder to stop. Ling Tian could not be any more depressed, to think that his own mother had turned into a stumbling block in his current path to stay single. It was actually to the point that she plotted about going to the emperor and asking for a bestowing of marriage. Thinking up to this point, Ling Tian felt like smashing his head on a block of bean curd to kill himself. Little did he imagine that Chu Ting'er was actually just as depressed as he was. That her own son actually became a silk pants. Chu Ting'er really wanted to go out to the public and yell out that her son actually did not force himself on any village girls, and neither did he do any atrocities, so how was he a silk pants? Even the servant girl that stuck beside him like a shadow for the past 10 years in his room was still a virgin, so where did the word silk pants originate from? Was it because he always got into fights? But whose family's children did not get into quarrels and fights in the capital? This showed how lively and normal my son actually was. Beating up the prince, as well as the official's son. This showed the talent my son possessed. It showed that the other children did not have the ability to fight with Ling Tian. If they have the ability, they are welcome to beat my son up. What useless chaps, defaming my son by saying that he is a silk pants after being defeated, pooey. Chu Ting'er could not help but feel indignant from deep within her heart. The way she looked at Ling Tian also grew more and more dull. Being tagged with the name of a silk pants, just by going out to fight, what can you expect to achieve? Can fighting bring you back a wife? It's also fine if you want to kidnap a lady back. So long as you manage to cook the raw rice, you would only endure a beating. However, where can the girl run to? What has been done cannot be undone, the family of that girl could only recognize this relationship. A beating in exchange for a wife, are you at a disadvantage? You look like a gentleman, but your flirting cannot even compare with your uncouth father. Sometimes, Chu Ting'er could not help but panic, and itched to remind her son again and again to find a suitable girl and aggressively push himself onto her. If not for the fact that she could not bring herself to do that, she would have long ago chased Ling Tian out with a stick to find a girl to flirt with. What a shameful matter. He was still the only direct descendant of the Duke Ling. The only son of the great General Ling. To think that he could not even find a prospective partner. And no one wanted to even bring up the topic of marriage with him. This was an epic comical scene, a situation which surpassed even the most absurdness of situations. Seeing how Ling Tian was staring blankly into space, Chu Ting'er fumed for a moment, and viciously aimed a kick at him. Go and get ready, ask Mr. Qin to teach you how to recite several poems. Remember, don't reveal your hooligan nature once you step out of the house. If things still doesn't work out this time, then your mother will break your legs. Chu Ting'er felt helpless. This kid looked like some tender strawberry on the outside, but was actually extremely tenacious. After being repeatedly beaten for half an hour, crying for his mom and dad, he only took a nap before lively jumping about as though there was nothing wrong. No one knew how his muscles were made, unbelievably tough. Seeing how his mother came in full of smiles, but left full of anger, Ling Chen by the side had long ago collapsed due to stomach pain from laughing. Holding her little stomach, she continuously groaned as she tried to stifle her laughter. Seeing her half-dead look, Ling Tian could only grind his teeth. He could not help but grab her and flip her over, placing her on his knees and give her buxom yet perky buttocks 2 sound smacks. The sharp and clear smack sounded like melodious music to his ears, and boy, was that feeling good. Ling Chen screamed shrilly, jumping up immediately as she held on to her buttocks, her little face flushed red like blood. The rims of her eyes reddened immediately. Seeing how Ling Chen looked like a pear blossom in the rain, too, Ling Tian got a rude shock. Thinking quickly, he said, "Chener, what to do? Your young noble now do not know how to cope with this, quickly help me think of an idea." Ling Chen was rudely interrupted by him, and while musing, the tears that were about to spill was withdrawn as a result. Thinking about the matter before, she could not help but start to smile once again. You can do whatever you want, I just don't believe that there's a question which my young noble cannot solve." Ling Tian gave a long sigh, appearing mournful. "The way things are now, I can only throw caution to the wind." Jejij. Ling Chen naturally understood what Ling Tian meant by throwing caution to the wind, and the laughter bubbling within her could not be inhibited, once again rushing out. The sounds of laughter akin to wind chimes ringing reverberated in the little courtyard. One could tell how happy the owner of the laughter was just from it. Ling Tian's face darkened, looking as though a snowstorm was incoming as he said, "Go and ask Ling Jian, how much of Ling Kong has he checked up on? A bunch of pig brains, it's been 10 years and yet there's no progress in it. Tell him that if he can't complete this in another 2 months, when he gets back, I'll personally give him the stick." Unable to vent his anger and frustrations, Ling Jian naturally became his punching bag. Actually, the matter could not be blamed on Ling Jian. The main part was that Ling Tian did not even place the Ling Kong father and son pair in his eyes any longer. The moment Ling Tian started to grow older, both father and son became playthings for Ling Tian to go back to once in a while. Recently, he had even sent the pair back to the northwest once again. Now that Ling Tian was only missing the name list of those in cahoots with the duo, he did not want to alarm them prematurely. This was also partly in fear that his grandfather was already getting on in his years and might not be able to take that mental blow. Thus he began to drag the matter out. By doing so, the victims were actually the father and son duo, since they were played till they felt as good as dead. Ling Chen withdrew her lovable body as she thought, "Poor Ling Jian, you just became a punching bag for your young noble once again, all the best." At the same time, a messenger falcon flew out from the little courtyard, turned half round before disappearing like a bolt of black lightning, disappearing in the horizons. Countless thousand miles away, Ling Jian, who was lying down beaten black and blue, suddenly shivered uncontrollably. Together with Ling Tian's helplessness, with Ling Chen's laughter, with the expectations of the silk pants in the capital, with the fear of those families with daughters, General Ling's troops had finally entered the capital with victory. The country was in jubilation, the officials all coming out to express their congratulations. The members of all the various associations of the princess, including those of the poetry, calligraphy and art sections, were also called to convene together. 1. What the author here is trying to convey is sort of a joke, because bean curd or tofu is soft and thus you cannot kill yourself with it. It is a way of expressing stupidity or powerlessness at the scenario. 2. This is used to describe the beauty of a lady. Chapter 79. Gathering of Silk Pants. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 79. Gathering of Silk Pants. Translator David T. Editor. Cell Ling family courtyard. Ling Tian was seated in the secret chambers silently while reading through the news being sent back from all around. There were a few of these news which drew his attention the most. The third young master of the Nangong family, one of the 6 great families, set off half a month ago to the Yang family for a marriage proposal. The son of the family head of the Shao family, Shao Jinyu, had paid a visit to the Dongfang family of the 6 great families. Author's note. While there are 8 large aristocratic families with equal status, Ling Tian was used to removing both the Ling and Yang family. He ignored the Ling family because he felt that the strength of the Ling family was just incomparable to the other 6 families. As for the Yang family, Ling Tian did not even have them in his sights. The news which made Ling Tian the most interested was this. The crown prince of the Northern Wei family proposed a marriage to the Yu family, marrying the young princess of the Yu family as the first wife of the crown prince. However, he was rejected. The princess of the Yu family decided to explore the continent to broaden her horizons. She had already set off from the northern way and her whereabouts were unknown. As Ling Tian saw this piece of news, he could not help but fall into deep consideration. No matter how big the Yu family was, they were still in the territory of the Northern Wei, under the jurisdiction of the Northern Wei Emperor. Just what was the Yu family relying on to reject the crown prince's proposal? Furthermore, the proposal was made personally by the emperor. This Yu family definitely isn't simple. The final phrase, whereabouts were unknown, made Ling Tian extremely interested. Ling Tian would naturally know just how large the information net of his subordinates were. Even with such a thorough search, they still gave him the report of whereabouts were unknown. Just what did this mean? There can only be two explanations to such a situation. First, the princess of the Yu family did not come out at all, and exploring the continent was nothing but an excuse. Second, the might of the Yu family was far above Ling Tian. Thus, Ling Tian isn't able to find out about anything. What a Yu family! Ling Tian thought calmly, since they have the guts to reject the proposal by the emperor of the Northern Wei Empire, why would they bother finding an excuse? The only possibility is the latter explanation. Since the Yu family's princess is out and the sky-bearing empire is the most happening at this moment, it is extremely likely for her to be in the sky-bearing empire. Ling Tian began to smile. It seems that things are getting more and more interesting. It seems that this is really a good opportunity. Ling Tian gave a profound smile. If the princess of the Yu family really came to the sky-bearing empire, I will be able to catch a small glimpse of the Yu family's true strength from her and her followers. This was something extremely beneficial to his next step. Ling Jiu looked at Ling Tian's expression secretly and gave his own view. If young noble is able to bring the princess of the Yu family to his bedroom, our possible enemy would become our ally. With regards to this opinion, Ling Tian dismissed it with a smile. If she did not meet his expectations, she will have to stand by the side even if she was the daughter of the Jade Emperor. While it is important to rule to heavens, his own love story must not be sacrificed. Of course, if the princess of the Yu family is up to his expectations, he would not mind either. The most important day had finally arrived. Early in the morning, Ling Tian was dragged off his bed by Chu Tinger, summoning 6 maids with a wave of her hands and dressing Ling Tian up all over. Only after 2 hours did they stop under the satisfied gaze of Chu Tinger. By the time Ling Tian left his room, he felt as though a great burden was off his shoulders and he could finally see the daylight again. Before he left the mansion, Chu Tinger caught up to him and said, "Tianer, you can choose anyone you want. But, you better not choose Jin Feng or Jiao Yu, the 2 princesses. Your mother does not wish to ask the impossible from the emperor." Ling Tian agreed as he quickly summoned a few guards behind him and left the house as though he was escaping. He did not even bother waiting for Wang Bo, getting on his horse and riding away. It was as though a monster would come out from his house at any time. He was like Jade, his horse like Dragon. Ling Tian was originally extremely suave already. Together with the fact that he dressed up intentionally, he was extremely outstanding. Along the way, he attracted the many curious gazes from the people on the streets. But the moment they saw that it was the infamous young noble Ling, they all quickly looked away in fright. A full 2 hours of dressing up. My goodness! Ling Tian cried out in his heart. For someone who would only take 3 minutes to wash up every day, the 2 hours of dressing up was akin to hell. Behind him, the 4 guards looked at the gates of the mansion in doubt. Just what is wrong with this usually fearless young noble? Don't tell me it's because of how excited he is because of the gathering of beauties in the palace. They all gave a weird laughter and quickly chased him with their horses. Every time Ling Tian came to the imperial palace, he felt extremely uncomfortable. Can this even be called an imperial palace? Ling Tian wished that he can bring the emperor back to the 21st century with him to let him take a look at the Forbidden City. That is called an imperial palace. What can this be considered? While it had a large land area, Ling Tian felt that it was not even comparable to the Ling family courtyard which he constructed. As he dismounted from his horse in front of the palace, Ling Tian instructed his guards to follow the palace guards to the side yard. Then, he followed two of the palace guards in charge of receiving guests to the Eternal Music Palace. The two guards leading the way obviously recognized who this young noble Ling was, bootlicking him along the way. "Lo, young noble Ling, General Ling is now at the Martial Virtue Hall. Does young noble wish to take a look?" "Why would I want to go there? Find my father to receive a beating." Ling Tian then thought about his father's expression when his father saw him yesterday. If not for the fact that Ling Xiao was too tired, he would have probably served Ling Tian with a round of the family laws. The moment Ling Tian thought about that, he became extremely depressed. "I am your son after all. Why do you act like I am your enemy?" Hearing this, both the guards began to giggle. Ling Tian walked forward as he asked, "Before I arrived, which other young nobles arrived?" A guard then replied, "Young noble Yang was the first to arrive. I heard that there was also a young master Nangong who came with him. Young noble Li, young noble Zhao, young noble Lu, the two young nobles from the Fu family, young noble Su." The guard slowly listed, naming over more than a dozen of names. Ling Tian rolled his eyes and said, "I dare to bet that this is the first time these garbage woke up so early in their life. A bunch of useless things." The guards laughed as they responded in agreement. However, they thought to themselves in their heart, if you lived up to expectations, how would you be so famous? Young noble Ling, the Eternal Music Palace is up ahead. We will not be following young noble Ling in. Young noble, please help yourself. The two guards took a bow before taking their leave. Ling Tian responded with a, "Oh," and took out 2 banknotes. "Go get some wine, it's on this young noble." "Many thanks, young noble." Just when Ling Tian walked into the Eternal Music Palace, 2 palace maids came forward to welcome him. After walking a few steps, he heard a wave of laughter and commotion from the inside. Ling Tian frowned for a moment as he thought to himself, these people really treat the palace as a brothel. Every one of them are so loud. As he entered the palace, Ling Tian almost suspected that he walked into the wrong place. To his left and right were groups of men all over. As for the distinguished ladies, not a single one of them could be seen. Ling Tian recognized almost every one of them here. They were all the young nobles of the different government officials. If they were to compare the level of silk pants, each and every one of them are all comparable to Ling Tian. Even if there were some who were on a slightly lower level, they weren't too far away from him. They were all extremely excited, spittle flying all around, obviously extremely interested in this gathering of flowers. Some of them even had a lump on their crotch, their sword fully drawn. Even though they had their robes as cover, their heads began to take a peek out. Who knows what they were thinking about? Ling Tian could not help but stop and ask the 2 palace maids, is there a mistake here? Is this a gathering of flowers or gathering of silk pants? 1. The Jade Emperor is the king of the celestial realm. Chapter 80. Young Noble Nangong, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 80. Young Noble Nangong Translator. David T. Editor. Cell amused, both the palace maids began to giggle as they replied, the princesses and all the young miss are still preparing in the inner hall. They have not come out yet. Ling Tian responded with an, "Oh," before saying, "Then I will come back later." Isn't this young noble Ling? I have not seen you for so long, and young noble Ling seems to be even more charming. Just when Ling Tian wanted to leave, a scruffy voice sounded from behind. As Ling Tian looked over, he saw a guy who was dressed in brightly colored clothes talking to him with a smile. While the weather was not warm, he was already gently waving his fan, wanting to look like he was very elegant. However, when coupled with his sleazy and vulgar appearance, he looked extremely bizarre. Cough cough cough, so it was Brother Lu. Ling Tian struggled with the urge to spit on his sleazy appearance as he forced out a smile. This Brother Lu was called Lu Chuanji. He was the only son of the Chief of Defense, Lu Qing. It seemed as though he was having the same struggle as Ling Tian, struggling to get married. Ling Tian did not quite understand. In his understanding, the son of an aristocratic family like himself should be the target of all the ladies. Why is it such that no one was interested in him up until now? Can it be possible that the people of this world are not concerned with fame and fortune? But does not seem to be the case either. How would Ling Tian know that before proposing a marriage to his family, the status of both the families must be matched appropriately? How would the small families dare to bridge that social class difference before his first wife was settled? They would only dare to approach after the first wife was confirmed. As for those families of similar status, they would want their daughters to marry into a good family. Thus, it was only natural that they would not consider a silk pants like Ling Tian. As such, an awkward situation like this was created. Lu Chuanji's voice immediately attracted the eyes of everyone else to the entrance. As they saw that the leading silk pants of the capital had arrived, they all swarmed around to greet him. Only 6 people remained unmoved, and Ling Tian also locked his gaze on the 6 of them. One of them was someone familiar, the young noble of the Yang family, Yang Wei. The 2 behind him were the younger brothers of Yang Wei. To the left of Yang Wei was a handsome man dressed in white robes, looking at Ling Tian with a look of mockery. Beside him was a delicate-looking young man with thick make-up all over. With Ling Tian's eyesight, he was naturally able to tell that she was a female with a single look. Behind them was a tall and sturdy burly man. As Ling Tian looked at the position he was standing, he was sure that the burly man was the guard of the white-robed man. With regards to this white-robed man, Ling Tian was sure that he was definitely the 3rd young master of the Nangong family, Nangong Lu. Everyone else who came here were all alone, but this brat actually brought a guard and a lady. Ling Tian grunted in his heart, since you are so close to the Yang family and displayed such an attitude. It is obvious that you are going to oppose me. Facing an enemy, Ling Tian would never show mercy. Who is that guy who looks like a dog? Ling Tian asked with his nose pointed up in the sky. Lu Chuanji and the rest present were already extremely displeased with the lofty Nangong Lu. The moment he arrived, he carried with him a proud disposition, ignoring everyone present. It was as though he did not place anyone present in his eyes. The moment they heard Ling Tian speaking with such ill intent, they were elated. Damn it, while we can't provoke you, someone who can provoke you is finally here. They all began to introduce him to Ling Tian with spices and seasoning added in the introduction. At this moment, Nangong Lu had already stood up with poise. He smiled to Ling Tian from afar and said, "This must be young noble Ling, right? I have long heard of your famous name. Seeing you today, you do live up to your name indeed. Young noble Ling is indeed a frivolous character." Yang Wei and his brothers did not even bother getting up as Yang Wei said with an eccentric tone, "That's right, the name of young noble Ling had spread far and wide. While this brother.in.law of mine is so far away, he has also heard of you. Brother.in.law, confirming the marriage so soon. They are really fast. It seems that the Yang family is also eagerly waiting for this marriage." Looking at the delighted look on Yang Wei's face, he looks as though he is afraid that the world does not know that this young noble Nangong is his brother.in.law. It seems that the Yang family is extremely pleased with this marriage. Ling Tian laughed and took 2 steps forward, brother.in.law. Ling Tian is indeed ignorant and uninformed. Since when did the famous young noble Nangong become the son.in.law of the Yang family? Nangong Lu smiled with elegance, "This little brother is here in the sky bearing empire for this matter. Thanks to the grace of the Yang family, this matter was confirmed last night. Ling Tian responded with a surprised before saying, I heard that the Yang family has two beautiful flowers. I wonder which flower brother Nangong picked. These words of his were extremely frivolous, making the faces of Yang Wei and his brothers turn ugly. Yang Wei then replied with black lines all over his face, the family head had made the decision to betroth my elder sister to Nangong Lu. Ling Tian then sighed with regret as he said, I see. I wonder why brother Nangong is here in the Eternal Music Palace for. Don't tell me you aren't satisfied with the young miss of the Yang family and want to find a concubine here today. At that moment, all of the silk pants behind him began to parrot Ling Tian. This fellow, not only did he marry the young miss of the Yang family without a sign, he actually still came here today. It is obvious that he does not have good intentions. Nangong Li's face became ugly as the cross-dressing lady frowned and shouted, You with the surname Ling, how is what my second brother here for any of your concern? The moment she shouted, all the young nobles present could immediately tell that she was a lady. They all turned towards her in unison, sizing her up from bottom to top. From the way she said, You with the surname Ling, it can be seen just how poor an impression she had of Ling Tian. Ling Tian responded with a oh before saying calmly, So it is Miss Nangong. No wonder. He purposefully dragged his words, making him sound extremely profound. Nangong Lu looked at his sister with rebuke before responding, This is my sister, Nangong Yu. She is still young and does not know her manners, I hope that young noble Ling will not blame here. As for why I am here today, I am only here to see the world a little with a thick skin. Since the identity of Nangong Yu was already exposed, it would seem too petty for him to try and conceal it again. Although he was courteous on the surface, the flash of viciousness in his eyes did not escape Ling Tian. It was obvious that he was only concealing his anger in his heart. The burly man behind Nangong Lu had a face full of anger as he glared at Ling Tian. However, this Miss Nangong did not have such a good temper. She continued to ask, You of surname Ling, when you said, No wonder, what did you mean by that? Ling Tian burst out into laughter and all of the young nobles who already understood what Ling Tian meant laughed along with him. The face of that Miss Nangong turned red immediately. She was an extremely spoilt lady at home, used to being arrogant and bossy. How could she endure being laughed at by so many people? Furthermore, after listening to how Ling Tian was when she was in the Yang family, she could not help but scold, What are you guys laughing about? Shut up. You. Tell me what it means. The last question was being said to Ling Tian. Then, a chuckle sounded from the door, Since young noble Nangong is not here to find a concubine and he still brought her sister, then he is definitely here to choose a husband for Miss Nangong. I am 16 years old, extremely charming and not married. I wonder if I can live up to the expectations of Miss Nangong. As this duck-like sound sounded, everyone knew who just arrived without even looking. He was the young noble who was part of the 3 great silk pants in the capital, Wang Bo. With just this phrase of his, he lived up to his name of being a silk pants. As everyone turned to look, they saw a person standing by the door wearing a light green silk robe. He even had a large peony flower on his head with a long strand of hair growing on the mole on his cheeks. At this moment, he was twiddling with that hair, looking up and down at Nangong Yu with a pair of lecherous eyes, clicking his tongue at the same time. He was 7 feet tall, but not even 100 caddies heavy. Coupled with his dressing, he looked like a bamboo pole by the side of the door.